Today we're going to do Daf Pei Aleph. That's 81, right? At the Mishnah. 81a. We thank Hashem that's able to enter every day. So learning, we should have the base of Mikdash immediately. Learning the Nishma. Have a good Labas Baruch Binyamin, son Ben Mitzian, and for Shleim for Abin David Ben Sar and Gedali Getzal Yasmin Prayer. Okay, the Mishnah that we're about to learn, we've heard about a bunch of times. It's very significant for a few blocks ago. The Mishnah starts off like this: If you buy trees, but not the field, so you don't own any of the land. You just bought two trees. If you buy two trees, so what would happen is, if the trees die, that's the end of it. You don't own the land there. And what else is this significant too? You don't own the land, the working area around the trees. That's not considered your area. Okay. Reb Meir says, Kanakarka. He says, no, two trees is enough. You acquire the land with two trees. Thank you. We quoted this Mishnah many times, but this is the source for it. Yeah. Reb Meir says, no, you two trees is enough to acquire land. Now the Chachamim hold, as we're going to see, that 3 trees is enough. So it's machlekes here, how many trees it takes, 2 or 3. Okay, now what happens, Igdilu? If the trees get larger, the canopy grows. So, Lo Yoshvei. The owner of the land is not allowed to trim it. We're going to see that the fact that he doesn't own the land means that the person that owns the land is allowing him to grow his trees there. Allowing him to grow his trees there means that he's allowed to have as much as they grow. If the person owns the land, then we have 2 sets of land here. We have the purchaser of the trees has land, and the original owner has land. Then we would view it that if your trees are growing into my property, I'm allowed to trim them. It's like your tree that's going over my property, I can cut it straight down. But that's only if you own land and I own land. But if you don't own any land, you're just growing your trees in my property, then there's no significance of them growing larger or smaller. I can never trim them. I gave you the permission to grow them in my property. Okay. It does matter. If he owns the land, then the owner of the original owner, the seller, is allowed to trim the trees when they get bigger. So they're moving, they're going over my property now, so trim them.
Even if the owner of the tree has the right to put in new trees,
yeah.
The one dies.
Yeah, he only sold those trees, which means that land, not more than that. But if he doesn't own the land, then the owner can't trim the trees because he gave him rights to grow his trees there. It's not like it's growing into his property. His trees are allowed to grow in his property, in the seller's property. What grows from the trunk belongs to if there's more branches that grow out of the trunk. This is talking about an opinion of the Chacham. What grows out of the trunk belongs to the owner of the tree. Min hashrashim, what grows out from the roots, so that's going to be shel bal hakarka. That belongs to the owner of the original owner. The difference, the Gemara is going to tell us the difference between what grows out from the trunk and from the roots is if you can see the base of where it's growing from. It's growing from the roots, that means it's growing from underground. So then we say that it belongs to the owner of the land. If we say if it's growing from the trunk, if it's growing from the trunk, then it belongs to the owner of the tree. Okay. Mesu. If the trees die, ain't like karka. He doesn't have any land to regrow them. Why? Because he only owned 2 trees, and he only had the rights for those 2 trees. Other trees, he doesn't own the land. He can't replant them. That's a bad business venture to buy trees, unless you're expecting them to live for a long time. But the trees that possibly would die, and then you're left with nothing. Sometimes people buy the fruits of the trees, like they say, I'll buy the whole season. Someone told me in Israel, he would his mother would drive by a house that had like a mango tree or something, or some tree, and she would just buy the whole. She would knock on the door and say, "I want to buy all the fruits for this year." And they would just buy them. They would just come and just pick the fruits. That way, the kids could just eat whenever they wanted. Yeah. No one knocked on my door. Oh, they do. They knock on my door for coconuts. Okay. Kana shleisha. Let's say he acquires 3 trees instead of 2 trees. That's a big difference. Then kana karka, then he acquires the land under it, and he can actually replant it, as you'll see in a moment. Higdilu. If the trees get large, if the canopy starts growing out, so then yashba, he can trim it down. The owner of the original owner of the outside land, not the tree guy.
You have an owner of the land and you have an owner of the tree.
Right. Yeah. And now we're saying is that the owner of the tree also owns the land under his trees.
3.
The 3 trees, yeah. What grows from the trunk, and from the roots, is shalai belongs to him. But mesu, and if they die, yeshle karka, he's able to replant those trees because he owned the land. He can replant the trees. And all of this is stam, right? If nothing is specified.
Because with the case of the 3 trees, does the owner of those 3 trees own the land between them that we spoke about earlier? Okay.
We'll see how much land he owns. We'll see. Tanan Hasa was taught over there. Where's over there? In Bikurim. It says, if someone acquires 2 trees in his friend's field, now they're giving fruit. He cuts off the first fruit and he takes them to the base of Mikdash. Maybe he brings them Veina Kaira, but he can't say passage that goes along with the Bikurim. There's a passage that's recited. I think I made that Chumash. There's a blue Chumash at the end. That over there. So we have 2 sources over here for the verses. Is it this week's parsha? Yeah. Mamish, today's Chumash. Not interesting. It says, when you enter the land that God is giving us inheritance, you will take possession, settle it. You'll take from the first of every fruit, gather from your land, that Hashem your God is giving you, put it in a basket, and you'll go to the place that Hashem has chosen to rest his name there. Should come to the Kohen, declaring today, and this is what you say, I'm declaring today to God, your God, that I have come to the land which God swore to give to our fathers to give us. Okay, and takes the basket and he says that whole passage. Okay, so there's a passage that goes along with this. Well,
he waves it out.
And then they wave it, yeah. So the problem is that in this passage it says that I am bringing the fruits of the land that you gave to me. Sata lanu, right? It says lasis lanu. Where does it say nasata lanu? Just 1 second.
It's bringing down the from
Asher nasat li. At the end of this, at the verse 10, pasuk 10, it says, "Vatihne veishis priha dama asher nasat li Hashem." And now I am bringing the first fruits of the land that Hashem has given to me. Well, is the land, did Hashem give you that land? So it depends. If he only has 2 trees there, then Hashem didn't give him the land; he gave it to the other guy. So maybe Veina he brings the fruits, but he can't read the passage. That would be a lie. Meir says maybe V'kaira. Meir says that you can bring, and you can also recite the passage. What do you think? What do you think the reason is? Why does Meir say that? Because 2 trees, according to Meir, is good enough. So you own the property.
Well, doesn't he own the ground underneath that tree?
According to Meir.
He could also say for his property.
No, but the verse says you can't change the verse. Yeah. So Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. Rav Yehuda is a student of Shmuel. He's a student of Rav. He's also a student of Shmuel. He says Mechayev Hayer Rav Meir Af B'Lekeach Peres Minashah. Rav Meir, it's not because of the 2 trees, but what all of you thought. It's not because of the 2 trees. Rav Meir would even obligate you to recite the passage even if you bought the fruits in the market and you didn't own the land at all. He's stricter. Well, I don't know if he's stricter, maybe he's more lenient, but he allows you to say the passage even if you don't own the land. Gemara is going to ask me, but first of all, where do you know this from? It says, Midiktani Mishnah Yisera, because this whole Mishnah is totally extra. There's no reason to have this Mishnah. If you own the land, then automatically you recite it. If you don't own the land, then you don't recite it. We know what Meir's opinion is about 2 trees. Why do you have to have another machlekes about bikurim? It must be that other machlekes about bikurim is telling me much more than 2 trees owns the land. It's telling me that even if you don't own the land at all, you still recite it. Michti, Tanale Diesh Karka. You already have a mission that says that he owns the land. Shita de Mevikara. Obviously, he brings the fruits and he recites the passage. Lashmamina must be Mechayev Meir Af B'Lekeach Peres Minashah. The Meir would make you recite the passage, would obligate you to recite the passage, even if you're bringing the fruits from that you purchased in the market.
Okay. Yeah, it says that the Bach substitutes the words from the tree for the expression fruits from the trees.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay.
Do you know if there's a shear?
How many fruits?
How much food or how much land before citing this?
I think it's just the land that this grew on.
There's no shear, just
If you own the land that the fruits grew on, that would be acceptable. But we're learning this Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel that says that your mayor's opinion is even if you don't own any land.
Yeah, but that's what I'm asking. How many apricots do I need to buy? How it becomes chiyuv.
I think that Mishnah that we say in the morning, Elu Dvarim Shein Lam Shir Hapeya Vabikurim, means that you don't actually have a shear. I think any amount that you bring is. I think that's the pshat in that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. It was just the first fruit.
The first, but how many first? First. Does it have to be of each tree? Each field? Yeah. Okay. Whatever amount you bring. Vaksiv could be that the sages added in just like for Peya, sages added in a 1/60th of the field is supposed to be Peya, right? So the could be there's a measurement. Do you remember from the Mishnayos? Did you do the Mishnayos Bikuru? You remember what it is?
That 60th includes like Shikha, because there were 3 different conditions that.
Peya you always leave. What are the things that you leave for the poor if they fall or if they're yeah. With the deformed clusters, grapes and stuff. Well, now we have some questions. It says Vaksiv, but it says in the pasuk Asher Tabi Me'artzecha. That's the pasuk that you bring from your land. Pasuk.
What's for ours?
So right at the command at the beginning of this the second pasuk of this week's Chumash is that you're only commanded to bring from your land. It says, yeah, that doesn't mean you have to own it. That's just telling you that you bring from Eretz Yisrael. Okay, that's a teretz. But it says your land. Now, where does it say ad mascha? Okay, so that's in Shemais Chav Gimel. Let's go back. It says apparently the Rashbam adds in that there's two sources for two ad maschas. Yeah. Reishis Bikuri ad mascha tavi beis Hashem aleikech le'savash kladi b'chalevim. This is in Parshas Mishpatim. It says that bring to the house of your God, your God, the choices of the first fruits of your soil, even in the 7th year. But that's in here. Okay. So it says it has to be your land, ad mascha. Now the Rashbam says that there's another source. Where's that source? In Chav Daled? In Lamed Daled. Lamed Daled. It's in Parshas Sisa. It says again, Lamed Daled. Yeah. Rishis Bikuri ad Mascha Tavi Beis Hashem Alekecha Le'Savash Gedi B'Chalevim, exactly the same pasuk. It says it later on. That's one of the 3 times it says Le'Savash Gedi. Right? Just 3 times in the Torah. So it also says Rishis Bikuri ad Mascha, the first of your fruits. So listen to what the Gemara answers in the Rashbam adds in a little point. He says that's Lamute ad Masakim. That's coming to exclude the land of a non-Jew. Because if a non-Jew owns land in Eretz Yisrael, and you buy the fruits from him, you don't bring of course the non-Jew doesn't have to bring the bikurim, but even if you buy the fruits from him, you don't have to bring that because it's as if it's chutz la'aretz. Yeah, because yesh kinyan akum to take it away from chumas ma'asos, I forget the expression, but whatever the case is, it's not considered obligated in Kurim. The Rashbam said, what about the other ad mascha? So he says, very interesting, he says this is coming to exclude if a convert buys land in Israel, and you buy the fruits from him. Now the convert himself is supposed to bring it, but we know the rule that he can't say the passage because he wasn't given the land as an inheritance, so he can't recite the passage. But nevertheless, he brings it. But if you buy the fruits from him, you don't even bring it. Yeah, you don't even bring it. He brings it. You purchased it from him. You don't even bring it. Yeah. Does a Levi and a Kohen bring bikurim?
These fruits are eaten by the Kohen?
I don't know. Right. That's a good question. Okay, in this discussion about this convert, Tosfos comes along and introduces this topic of can a convert recite the benching for others? Because he has to say, that you gave the land to our fathers, the special land, right? We say a neidulacha. Say that. So can a convert recite that? So Tosfos says that can he lead the benching? Leading the benching back then meant that he recited the whole bench, not just that everyone recited and he just finished it off. Leading the bench meant that everyone was being yotze with him. So that's what traditionally it meant. So he says, no, you can't lead the benching. When he davens on his own, he's going to daven differently. He says, Elikei Aves Yisrael instead of Elikeinu Elikei Avesenu. He says Elikei Aves Yisrael. And when he davens in shul, if he leads the prayers in shul, he says Elikei Avesechem. That's Rabbi Natam's opinion. If his mother's from a Jewish person, he says Elikei Avesenu. He's allowed to. How does that mean his mother's from Jew? He made me Israel. That must follow that other opinion. That means that he's not a convert if his mother's Jewish. Okay, whatever. The Re argues on this. He says that a convert says Laviseno. And he can also follow the bench. He can also recite the benching. Yeah, this is this interesting discussion here. Now, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says that in Hilchos Megillas Esther, he writes that the convert can't say Sha'asa Nisim Lavisenu. Yeah, I don't think we follow that, even though it's in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Are you familiar with this? Sha'asa Nisim, the blessing that we say when we light Hanukkah candles or when we read the Megillah, Sha'asa Nisim Lavisenu. I think the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says that a convert doesn't say that. Did you ever look at this? I don't think we follow it. I would have to look in the Art Scroll thing because the Art Scroll Kitzur has like these modern notes on it.
Would that be in the halachas for Hanukkah?
Yeah, it would be either in Hanukkah or Purim. I don't remember which one it was in. It's on. It's like on a bottom shelf over there is the Kitzur. Yeah, that would be following this. One opinion here in Tosfos, the Rabbi Natam opinion.
Where on the page is this house you're referring to?
Ad Masakum. And if you go down to the line that says the line 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At the end of the line it says Umikaya Chahi Mishnah Loi Haya Maniach Rabbeinu Tam Legerim Levarich Birchas Aziman Lefi Shein Yochel Leimer Shein Chalta Laviseno Eretz Tova. Starting from there, and then it goes to Ulariner the Shapi Matziyamar Ger Laviseno, right? Go down, yeah. Okay. Jonathan is looking it up. You have to look at like chapter 130 is like Hanukkah, and right after that is probably Purim. It's not at the beginning. It's like 130 something. It's, okay. They said that's coming to exclude if a non-Jew owns the property, and the Rashbam added in that detail. But it says that you gave to me. What is that? How was that? Where was that? That was back in this week's parsha. Shenasatali. Right? Pasuk 10. And now I am bringing the first fruits that you get that Hashem gave to me. What do you do with that? It says, well, Reb Meir would explain that the obviously Zuzi v'zavni b'hu, that you gave me the money to buy it. You follow? Shenasatali doesn't mean you gave me the land. Found it over there. Let's see. Hanukkah. B'layla Rishon, this is 139. On the first night of Hanukkah, you say 3 brachas. Yer Omer Shasinisim Yisrael.
Oh, wow.
That's what he writes. Mamar Laviseno Yatza. If he says Laviseno, our fathers is Yatza now. See note 50 here. Mishnah Berurah rules that a convert may recite the blessing with the usual wording of Laviseno. See above 45:23. Oh, so apparently it's earlier than this. Okay, so Mishnah Berurah writes that we don't follow this. What he writes in the Kitzur. Okay, and I think in Purim, I think there was a similar thing.
Just say
The regular says it like regular in general. That's the way we rule, and all the davening, right? They don't do anything, adjust any of the davening. Even right, even Shlayasani, the Rabbeinu Tam is suggesting to change the Shemon Esrei, be a special prayer book. In Megillah Esther, Megillah, does it say the same thing? Yeah. Appears in Megillah, Shalish Brachais. Appears in Megillah, someone else says the brachas. No, he doesn't say over here. He doesn't say it. It's really. Thank you for pointing that out. It's only in Hilchos. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you. What do you mean?
If it's not Rami
Oh, no. He's not suggesting that. He's not suggesting that it's not that a ger isn't a ben Avram. Just so Rabbeinu Tam Hillel is asking, a ger is automatically, you can say Avisenu because he's a ben Avram. That's the Ri's view. Yeah, Rabbeinu Tam doesn't explain that. That's the Ri's view. That's the Ri who says that the ger says everything the same. But they have a note on that. Yeah.
That's the reason.
No. The Rashbam is just adding in that the law that a ger brings the bikurim, but he doesn't recite the passage. That's clear. I think it says in the Gemara somewhere. The Mishnah it says that he doesn't recite the passage. What happens if someone buys the fruits from the convert? So over here, the Rashbam is saying that he doesn't even bring it. Doesn't bring it. Yeah. Okay. Masiv Rabba has a question. Rabba has this great question. Quotes a source that says that if you buy one tree in your friend's property, you bring bikurim, but you can't say the passage because you didn't acquire the land, and that's the opinion of Reb Meir. 1 second. According to Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, he was saying that the reason for Reb Meir is even if you purchase the fruits from without owning any land. Now we're saying no. Reb Meir says you need to own land because there's a difference between one tree or two trees. So it's a kasha on the pshat of Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. The Gemara says to Yufta, that's a very strong question, and what are we going to do with those other sukkim? The Rashbam says we learn it for whatever.
We don't practice before now because we're in Gullus, or because we do have Yidden there.
I'm not sure. Maybe you're supposed to bring it to the place. Yeah, probably because there's no Beis Hamikdash, and it had to be waived in there.
They don't put anything on the staff, right? Just go on and just eat it.
They would put it down by the floor. Zara. Amalei, Reb Shimon ben Eliakim, l'Rabbi Lazar. Shimon ben Eliakim says to Rabbi Lazar, "My time of the Reb Meir, the Ilan Echad. My time of the Rabbanim b'shnei Ilanos." What's the reason why Reb Meir would say that owning one tree, you bring the bikurim, but you don't recite the passage? According to the Rabbanan, 2 trees, you bring the bikurim, but you don't recite the passage. So what's going on? Do you have to bring it or you don't have to bring it? If you don't have to bring it, so don't bring it. And if you do have to bring it, then recite the passage. Why? What's this going on? What's this thing? You bring it, but you don't recite it. How does that work? Amar Lai, Rabbi Lazar responds, what are you doing to me? You're asking me questions that no one knows the answer for, and you're just asking me just to embarrass me in public. This is like asking the doctor, what's the appendix for? Okay. So, yeah. So, there's the guy in medical school. They told him, they asked, what does the appendix do? So he says, I knew, I just forgot. Okay. So I'm a Rabba. Rabba says, my kushya, what's the question that Rabbi Lazar is getting all worked up about? It's a simple teretz. You see, we said that if someone sells one tree, or he sells two trees, does the person acquire the land that's under the tree or around the tree? So we said that no, he doesn't acquire it. But maybe the pshat is because yad lekeach ala tachtaina, the hand of the purchaser is as the lower hand. And if you want to prove that it's yours, you're going to have to prove it that it's yours. Really, we don't know if you own the land. And when it comes to a purchase, we say, well, go prove it. When it comes to bikurim, we'll say, well, you'll have to be machmer and bring it. But you don't say the passage because we have a doubt. Maybe this whole thing is about a doubt, and we make a difference in halacha between a ritual law versus a civil law. Gemara says, "Me misafkalei." Do we have a doubt about this? This is not a doubt. You look in the Mishnah; it says that you didn't acquire the land. Wasn't a doubt. By the one tree the mayor is talking about. Ema, so the Gemara says, well, we can adjust that to say Shemalei Kanakarka. Maybe you don't acquire the land. That was an easy answer. You have a whiteout and you fill it in. Maybe you don't acquire the land. Okay. The Gemara is a very interesting question. If it's not Bikurim, and you're telling me that you bring it, and it's all a doubt, let's say it's not really Bikurim. You're bringing things that are not holy into the Azara. You're not allowed to bring things that aren't holy into the Azara. Now, Tosfos over here on the top, he points out that it's just regular fruits. You can't bring something that's not a sacrifice into the Azara. This points out that the problem of bringing something into the Azara that's not a carbon, that's only if there's some sort of carbon aspect to it. But when it says in some places that you're allowed to eat the carbon together with other foods, so you're allowed to bring ketchup and mustard into the zara to eat your things. If you want to have a steak sandwich or whatever, you could bring. They weren't eating it just plain. They were allowed to eat it al saiva or whatever. Wait, the Gemara is going to talk about that. So those are things that are not a carbon. The things that aren't a carbon, you were allowed to bring in. But here, you're bringing it as a carbon. It has to actually be a carbon. See, it gets worse. The laws get stricter when it has some. Do they have a note on that, or don't bring it in? Okay, whatever. I just thought it's interesting because people are always asking how would they eat the carbon? It would just be plain. The Tosfos, you want to see that in Tosfos? It says, "Wait, the kamer b'kaim Rabba." Towards the end of that Tosfos on the top, it says, "Yechlua sheyochlu ima chulin utruma kadei shetei nechelas ala seiva." You bring it, you can eat together with it chulin and truma. Yechlua, that they were eating other things.
Chulin is mundane.
So were they eating the carbon in the base of Mikdash as well? Were the Kayanim that were in the base of Mikdash eating it there, or were they going out? They were eating it in there, I guess. Okay. I'm sorry? One second. Now the Gemara says, the Gemara answers what Yonatan said, the Makdishlu, it's not a problem. You consecrate it. You just say it's hektish, so it's not chulin. It says, but how could you eat it then if you made it hektish? The way you consecrate it and then you eat it, that would be me'ila. It says, v'abai mechlino, but you have to eat it. It Says, well, that's not a problem. The paraklu, you redeem it, so you exchange it for money. It says, "V'dilma lav bikurim ninava kamafkalu mitruma ma'isa." 1 second. There's a secondary halacha here that if something is bikurim, you don't have to take chumas and maisers. So when you're saying that it's bikurim, so you're not going to take the chumas and maisers. The Gemara says no. Demafrishly, you're separating the chumas and maisers. So what are you going to do with the chumas and maisers? Maybe it's bikurim, maybe it's not bikurim. It says bishleima truma gedayla yav l'kayin. He says don't worry about it. Truma gedayla, the appendix. The doctor said, what does it do?
It's good for appendicitis. Without an appendix, you can have appendicitis.
The you know what the Gemara calls the appendix? Sine divi.
What?
Sine divi. It means that if a bear eats an animal, it leaves over the appendix. It doesn't eat the appendix. And it says sine divi means hated by the bears. Yeah.
There's the 2 bears.
Okay. So Truma Gedayla goes to the Kayan anyway, right? Who gets the Truma? Who gets the Truma? The Kayan gets the Truma. Who gets the Bikurim? The Kayan gets the Bikurim. So big deal. You separate it and you give it to the Kayan. You tell him, maybe it's Truma, maybe it's Bikurim. Just take it. Whatever it is, it's yours. So Meiser Sheni, Nami Yavle L'Kayan. Now Meiser Sheni is just taken to Yerushalayim, and it's eaten in Yerushalayim. You're allowed to give it to a Kayan to eat. You can share it with your friend. So it's not a big deal. You take the Meiser Sheni, you separate Meiser Sheni from the Bikurim, from the potential Bikurim, and you give it to the Kayan and say, okay, I don't know, maybe it's Bikurim, maybe it's not, whatever it is, take it. Meiser Ani, Nami Yavle L'Kayan Ani. Give it to a Kayan, that's an Ani. And you can get away with that because it's Meiser Ani. It's talking about the 3rd year or the 6th year that you don't do Meiser Sheni. So you're going to give it to, okay? You're going to give it to a Kayan, that's an Ani. That's poor. Probably a Kayan yeshiva bacher. He doesn't have any stipend or something. Give him a little. Okay. Ela Meiserishan the Levi Laman Yavle, but the Meiserishan has to go to a Levi, and the Bikurim goes to a Kayan. So when you have this Bikurim and you have to separate the Chumas and Meisers from it, one of them is going to be Meiserishan. You have to give it to a Levi. How are you going to give it to a Levi? You have to give it to a Kayan because maybe it's Bikurim. So who are you going to give it to? It says the Yavle Kayan. Says you give it to a Kayan anyway. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the Tanya was taught in a Brisa. Truma Gedayla L'Kayan, Meiserishan L'Levi, Divrei Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Meiserishan Af L'Kayan. He says that Meiserishan goes to the Kayan, and take out the word Af. This is explained because Ezra made a decree. If you remember this from the Mishnah, Ezra made a decree that the second base of Migdash, the Levium didn't come back together, so they stopped getting. He took away they're getting the Meiser Rishon, thank you, and they give it instead to the Kayan. Because only 42,360 people came back, and there were very few Levium amongst them. So they
first time.
oh yeah. So the first time that he came to Daf Yomi, we learned about that. Yeah, very good. Okay, you remember what Masechta that was? Can I tell you? Were you here for Yavamas? Were you here for Ksubas?
I don't know.
You weren't here for Chulin.
I don't think he was, no.
There was one time when I came before school.
Oh, it might have been on the Shavuos that you came, and okay. He was here for Ksubas? Yeah, it's Yavamas or Ksubas.
Here was a question I asked them. Why did he have to give them maceration? Maceration known as ties in Eretz Yisrael. Why would he just cancel the decree automatically?
So Shalom is telling me that he remembers a question that he asked when we learned that Gemara, that if the Levium didn't show up, so Meiser Rishon is only in Eretz Yisrael. So what's the punishment that they're not getting the Meiser Rishon? They're not there.
Yep, I remember that question too now.
And Yitzhak probably does too.
I'm not sure the answer, but maybe
Highlights.
that you do Meiser.
Hasn't changed.
Maybe you would give Meiser in Bavel as well. Do you remember what the Rambam writes? Do you give Meiser in Bavel? I know in Syria there were the laws of Meiser. Remember in the Parsha it says in the Rashi and Bahayim Shemaya says that you should keep the mitzvahs outside of the land of Israel, so that when you come back you should be familiar with it. So one of the pshatim over there is not that you should keep tefillin and mezuzah. That's in Rashi. It says taf vav mem. It's really supposed to be trumas and meisters. Trumas and meisters. That's the Haksava Kabbalah writes that even though you're not in Israel, of course your tefillin and mezuzah you have to keep outside of Israel. Trumas and meisters, that's really for Israel, but you keep it anyways in Babel. Okay. So we have a teretz for that as well. Everything gets answered up. But maybe you have to recite the passage. Maybe it's really bikurim, and you're supposed to recite the passage. It says kriya le makeves. Not reciting the passage doesn't affect the validity of the bikurim. Excuse me. Veloi, it doesn't affect the validity. But this is a phrase that's borrowed from someone that pledges to bring a carbon mincha from 1 to 60. So 1 saw to 60 saw. Not saw. 1 isarin to 60 isarin, which is a tenth of an eighth or whatever. I think an isarin would be 43 and a fifth eggs. Is that what it is? 43 eggs. Is it 43 or 53? 43 eggs. So when you bring that amount, you can bring 1 isaran up to the gemashi of challah. You bring 1 to 60 and you put it in a bowl. Now the biggest bowl in the base of English was 60, so that you were able to mix the oil into it. If it was a bowl that contained 60, but let's say you say I'm bringing in a mincha of 61. So then you have to put it in a separate bowl because you're not able to mix it. But the Gemara says that mixing it doesn't matter. It says, yeah, but you have to be able to mix it. If you're not able to mix it because you have too much flour in there, you can't mix it. It's going to fall over. So then we say that it's makiv. So kol haroyel will be anything that's fit to be mixed. Then you don't have to mix it. You have to be able to do it. Sort of like grammar rules. You're allowed to break them once you know them, right? So so if you have to be able to mix it, then you don't have to mix it. But okay. So it goes like this. Problem is that when it comes to the Meiser, when it comes to Bikurim, you have to be able to recite it. You told me that if you don't recite it, that's fine. But maybe that's only if you're able to recite it. Here you're not able to recite it because maybe it's not really bikurim. So the Avaduk Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, the Gemara says what he's doing is he's following this teaching of Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina the Amra that he says, Batzran, if someone himself picks is that olives or grapes? There's grapes. Someone picks the grapes. The Shagam Biad Shliach and he sends them with a messenger. Umeis Shliach Baderach, or could be that there was a shliach that picked it and he sends it and the shliach ends up taking it, but he dies on the way. So he has to send it with another shliach. So maybe he brings it, but he doesn't recite the passage. My time of the you have to be able to say there's a rule that the one that picks it has to bring it. If you don't have that, then you can't recite the passage. It says "V'lakachta" in these verses in today's Chumash. V'lakachta, and then it says "Hinei Hevesi." Is that where they're learning it from? V'lakachta. Now, why does it say "V'lakachta"? It should say "V'hevesa me'artzecha." It says the same person that brings it, that picks it has to bring it. And what happens if not? So Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina says, so okay, so you recite it, you bring it without reciting it. So we're going to follow that view that even when you can't recite it, you still fulfill the obligation. Yeah. What was it? Oh, b'fanei nichta. Oh, yeah. That's right. Amalei Ravacha, brother Rav Avi Ravashi, Ravacha, the son of Rav Avi, says to Ravashi, Mechti, psukin in olikri. What's the big deal? It's just extra verses. You can read today's Chumash as many times as you want. You say, you bring it now, it's in the summer, right? The Bikurim is brought in the summer. Say, I was learning Chitas. What's the big deal? I was reading the Chumash. Why did it make such a, this is like what we do for if you miss, what is it? Either if you miss Kriyashma, but also if you miss Kiddush Levana, they said last night, but if you miss Kiddush Levana and it's after the 15th, say, okay, so take out the Gemara and read it, and, from the Gemara, it doesn't have to be, exactly from that Kiddush Levana thing. You're learning the Gemara outside under the moon. Okay. So you can do that. Amar Lei, he says, Mishum demechzik kishikra. No, because it looks like you're lying. You didn't grow it, and you're reading it in the Beis Hamikdash. It makes it look like this is what you're reciting. That's it looks like it's false. Ramesharshi breder Rav Chia Amar. Ramesharshi, the son of Rav Chia, says, Dilma asi lafkinu mitruma meiser. There's a problem. If you're going to recite the passage, then people are going to think that it's really Bikurim. And they're not going to separate Chumas and Maisers. And we had to go through that whole process before where Chumas and Maisers needs to be separated. So we have to make a distinction here. And we have to show you that it's not really Bikurim, and you have to go through the process of the Chumas and Maisers, giving them to a Kaya, and just in case. Okay. Now we start a new Gemara. If the trees grew wider, you're not allowed to trim it. And what grows from the roots, you're not allowed to trim it. Doesn't mean means the original owner that owns the rest of the land can't just come along and say, your trees are getting too wide, I'm trimming them. And what grows from the roots belongs to the owner of the land. What grows from the trunk belongs to the owner of the tree. What's considered from the roots? I'm sorry, from the trunk. What's considered from the roots? Yeah. Rabbi Yechon says, I guess anything that sees the sun, anything that's exposed, is considered from the trunk. If it doesn't, if it's not exposed, that's from the roots. That means it's growing from under the ground. It's a new shoot that's coming up from the roots. Even though you say that's my tree, but nevertheless, no, it's coming from the ground. We say it's it belongs to the owner of the land. The Gemara says, 1 second. Maybe the land is going to rise up a little bit. How do they translate sirtin? Like a flood or some sort? Let me take a look. Sediment. Yeah. Consider perhaps the land is covered with sediment from flowing water. Yeah.
So I know there are some trees that have it's a bunch of trees together, but it's really one tree. It's from the same roots.
Right.
So in that case, that would be
part of the roots. It depends. If it's growing from underground, then that would be a new tree.
But it looks like a separate tree. It's really part of the same tree.
I know. That's what we're saying over here. It looks like a separate tree. It belongs to it's also considered a separate tree. Yeah.
The saprophytic trees that we see in Florida, sometimes you used to have by our house, an oak tree, and then another tree was growing right out of the main trunk of the oak tree. Like, it's chopped there and then grew. We had another tree like that. So in that case, the second, if the guy bought the first tree, the second tree belongs to him.
Yeah, if it's growing from the tree, not from underground. What was the word you used for that? Saprophytic.
It's like parasitic. It's taken. Well, it could be
Saprophytic?
It could be
Naftali?
symbiotic because there
Uh-huh.
might be ones helping.
You know what that is? Saprophytic?
No, I don't know that word. I'm missing these divrei.
Saprophyte, it's all the guys when you were a policeman, you would arrest. You know, they were eating on society.
Like parasitic.
It's
Oh,
almost same as a
saprophytic, he's
parasite.
saying, is almost the same
I
word
think
as
so. Let me
parasitic.
look it up. I might be wrong.
Okay. Okay. The Gemara is asking, maybe the sediment is going to rise. And he's going to tell him, what's going to happen is, it's possible.
Oh, excuse me. It's usually a plant, fungus, or microorganism that lives on dead or decaying organic matter.
Oh, that's
So it would-
saprophytic?
Yeah, so
Oh.
it wouldn't be saprophytic. because
That's like
it's
a
not
mushroom
dying.
or something.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
well, mushrooms can, it depends where it's growing.
Mushrooms usually grow on some wood, some
Yeah. The
dead
wood is
wood.
dead.
Okay, so we have a concern over here. Basically, what the Gemara said is that even if it's growing from the very, very base of the tree, all the way down to the ground, but it's still exposed, it's considered his tree. So we have a concern that maybe there's going to be a branch that's coming out very close to the floor, but not on the floor. And then there's going to be a sediment is going to grow over that. It's going to like rise over that, not grow. It's going to rise over that. He's going to say, look, you sold me 3 trees. Does he own that? So you sold me 3 trees. And it's a way that he's going to trick the seller. He's going to like make a claim over there that tree was his. And then 2 trees, he doesn't own the land. 3 trees, he does own the land. So how could the sages set up a system where if you're going to let this grow and you're going to claim that it's yours, years down the road, you're going to say that I bought 3 trees in the property. So Elam Rav Nachman Yakutz. Rav Nachman says it doesn't mean that you're allowed to let it grow. You say that it's yours and you can cut it off, but not that you can leave it growing, because that later on you may make a claim that's going to corrupt the justice here. Rabbi Yochanan Yakutz. Rabbi Yochanan also says you cut it off. Amar Rav Nachman. Nachman says naktinan we've accepted nakitinan we've accepted dekalein legeza. A palm tree doesn't have any trunk, which means that things that grow from the trunk don't belong to the person that purchased the tree. We have a special halacha that things that grow out of the trunk belongs to the owner of the tree. Nachman says not by palm trees, not by date palms. Savar Rav Shvid L'meimar, Rav Shvid understood. What does this mean? Ein legeza l'bal dekel. You don't have he doesn't own the trunk. He doesn't own the things that grow out of the trunk. The kimedol mechval l'sharska asuchi mesach daite. Since you don't own, since if you cut it down, it never grows back. So basically, there's no way for you to keep this tree, and you're going to end up uprooting it. And so he has no thoughts of even keeping the anything else that grows, just the original tree. So because when he purchased it, he didn't intend to have anything more than just the original tree. So then he doesn't get it. Maska Flora Papa says, someone buys 2 trees, the same thing happens. According to the Rabbana. According to the Rabbana.
Sorry, because it was driving me nuts. Saprophytic is undead. Parasitic is when one takes advantage of the other. But here the tree's not taking advantage of. Turns out there's epiphytic.
Epiphytic.
The epiphyte is a tree that's growing on another tree.
Epiphytic. Saprophytic is when it grows on dead wood. Parasitic is when it benefits from the other one. And epiphytic is when it grows on the other one.
Pretty much, without getting Rashi or the
Okay. Very nice. So 1 second, we're saying over here that when you have 2 trees, the same thing applies. That the person doesn't intend to take anything more than the trees. If that svara is real, that when the tree dies, you uproot it, and then that's it. You can't plant it again. So the same thing that applies to the palm tree should apply also to someone that purchases 2 trees that you're going to end up uprooting and not take it. So why buy those trees? You get what's growing from the trunk. It says that you get from the trunk. Elamar of Papa says that's not what Rav Nachman meant. Nachman meant not that you didn't have intention for it because you're going to have to uproot it. What he meant is ein like gezel abal dekel. He doesn't get it. Lefishein mitzi geza because it doesn't grow branches out of the trunk. It's not like a regular tree where you cut it and then it starts to branch off. Palm tree only has one. Remember the Gemara that says Jewish people are compared to the palm tree because we only have one heart for Hashem. We don't have any diversions. It's Gemara Megillah, I think.
Very touchy.
Yeah, maybe that was associated with Tzaddik Tamar. I don't remember if it quoted that. We recently had Tzaddik Tamar. We had that like 2 days ago. Okay. So Rav Zvid Kasha. What does Rav Zvid do? He had a different shah. What is he going to do with that Mishnah? It says Masnisin Dezav in the Mishnah. The Mishnah that says that when you have 2 trees, you can still get the branches that are growing from the trunk. 1 second, you're going to uproot it. According to Rav Zvid, anything that you're going to uproot, you never had intention to really take anything more than that. So why are you taking? It says no over there. You purchased the trees for 5 years. If that's the case, then even if the tree dies, you can still plant another tree during those 5 years. So over there, you're going to get the things that grow from the trunk because you do own the land. And you did have intention for the regrowths because you purchased it for 5 years, not that you purchased the tree. Then when it dies, you don't have anything. That was a special case where you purchased it for 5 years. Kana shleisha kana karka. It says that if someone purchased 3 trees, he also has land as well. The kama, Jonathan, this is your question. How much land does he get if he has 3 trees? Amar Rab Chia Barabba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Chia Barabba is the famous student of Rabbi Yochanan. He says in the name of his teacher, Rabbi Yochanan, he acquires underneath it, underneath the tree, underneath the branches, between the branches, between the canopies, and also and outside the canopy, the amount of person that's picking the figs. That's the word for picking figs. It would be the ira.
I understand this. You can have a tree with roots, and then other trees are growing from those same roots. You could have one owner own one tree, and another owner own a different tree, but it's part of the same tree.
If it's the same roots that came from underground,
Yeah.
I thought you said it comes from underground.
Belongs to the other guy. Yeah, possible. It belongs to the other guy.
So if a guy bought a bamboo typically sends its roots out this way,
Yeah.
or the other bamboo shoots back
Right.
to the owner.
It won't be his.
There's no one stalk.
Yeah. Usually, most trees don't
No.
send off new trees coming from the roots. Usually, they don't do that. I mean, you can take a branch and put it back in the ground and let it grow again. The banana does, but bananas are grass, I think. Yeah, it's like this, but yeah.
Where is Lebanon's?
No, we make hadama because of suffix. That's why. That's what you do when there's a.
One comes.
Is a palm tree a tree or a grass also?
No, I don't know. Scientifically, I don't know. It has seeds, but that doesn't tell me anything. Dr. Stein is looking it up. Bananas have seeds too.
Is a palm tree a seed?
Have seeds.
What was the question?
No. Is a palm tree a tree or a grass? Yeah. No, he's asking scientifically. Bill is saying, who cares? It's just science. Big deal.
Is a palm tree a tree or a grass?
Wondering because of the discussion about the date palm and what grows from it. I wonder if by date palm, they mean the same thing that we mean by date palm.
There's the
What is
answer.
it?
The palm tree is technically not a true tree, but a type of grass.
It's a
Say
type
that
of
10
grass.
times fast, not
Type
a
of
tree.
grass.
Yeah, I have a friend that he planted date palms next to his swimming pool, and it started to crack so he's tried to come and take it out. He wasn't able to he wanted to extract it and replant it somewhere else. Weren't able to do that. These massive cranes coming, it was gonna like rip up the whole thing. It was so, the roots were so strong.
Do that with the
Maybe that's the pshat. The cactus.
cactus, yeah, because you can't knock them down federally. You can't do that.
Really?
Do what?
No, it's a big pond. The saguaro cactus,
The who?
the saguaro, the cactus in southern
Yes,
Arizona. Yeah.
The ones on
federally,
the
you
side
can't-
of
you
the
can't-
road?
yeah, you can't take them, knock them down.
They have to replant them.
You have
And
to
do they
replant them.
when you replant them?
Take them off from the ground. And plant them.
Do they have deep roots?
I think they do.
Interesting.
They have sharp thorns.
Hey, you wear gloves.
Should
Okay.
we wear bee gloves?
Okay, so Kamalaya Vasali, also the area around the tree for the person that collects and for his basket, however big that is. Maskeflo Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar has a question. Rabbi Lazar makes an assumption here. Says someone that buys 2 trees or 3 trees. He buys 3 trees, right? Buys 3 trees. We're saying that he gets the land. So Rabbi Lazar says, 1 second. We learned before that someone that buys trees, we had a machlekes between Tanakama and Rabbi Akiva. If someone buys not by trees, we had it by the bar vidus, by the path. Does he own the path? Does he, right? Does he get the? It was in Hamaycher es Abayas. That was in Perek, 4th Perek, right? Definitely by the bar and the dust, he had to purchase a path. What happens by trees? Doesn't say exactly, but we're assuming it's the same thing. Yeah, so there's Machlekes Rabbi Kiva and the Tanakama, if you have to purchase the path or not. Tanakama says that you didn't sell the guy the path, you have to purchase it. Rabbi Kiva says, Meicher Bayin Yafim Meicher, you sold him the path as well. The problem is over here, that comes along Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, or Rabbi Barabba, name of Rabbi Yochanan, he says that someone that purchases 3 trees, he gets the area all around the tree, like that. And Rabbi Lazar says, 1 second, he doesn't have a path according to the Tanakhama. You can't even get to it, and you're giving him land surrounding it. He says the path is what he needs. You're giving him land that he maybe needs, maybe doesn't need. I mean, he can collect the fruit without having the area around the canopy. He can collect fruit from underneath, under the canopy. You don't have to have the area surrounding the canopy. So the Gemara answers, the reason why he doesn't have a path, because there's another person that owns that land. But that's actually the land that he owns. Is the tree. That's part of the tree. He owns the tree, but he doesn't own the other land. What comes out is a very strange thing. Gemara is going to say that basically, if someone purchases 2 trees, he doesn't own any land, but he's able to walk to the trees. He has a path to the trees to get it. Someone purchases 3 trees, he owns the land, but he can't get to his trees. You follow? Because there's another guy that owns it. When you purchase trees, so you have a host, the landowner, and he's hosting your trees. And when you purchase those trees, he allows you to use the land to get to it. When you purchase trees with the land, they say you want to get to the land, figure it out. It's not that's not my problem. You want to buy a path.
When we learned about somebody selling the field within the field, was there no obligation for the original owner to sell that land with the path?
No, the guy would have to purchase a path.
He would have to.
or the rights to walk. Amar Rab Zera, take a look at this. Amar Rab Zera, Midiv Rabbeinu Nilmad. Rab Zera says we learned from Rabbeinu, which I guess was Rabbi Elazar. Says, Shleisha. Only 3 trees, he doesn't have a path. Shnayim, but if there's 2 trees, Yeshla, he gets a path. Says, look, I was using it's in your property, and you're allowing me to grow it in your property. You're allowing me also to get to the trees. I'm Rav Nachman Yitzchak l'Rava. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says to Rava, Leimer Rabbi Lazar Leslie the Shmuel Rabbi. Look at what's going on over here. It looks like Rabbi Lazar that had this kasha and Rabbi Yechanan that says you don't have a path. That means that he's not following his own teacher Shmuel. Now, Rabbi Lazar was his Talmud of Rabbi Yechanan, but apparently before he came to Eretz Yisrael, he was also a Talmud of Shmuel. So, yeah, so he's saying that he's not passing like Shmuel. Why? Because Shmuel said, Damar Shmuel, halachic Rabbi Akiva, Damar Meichamayim Yafa Meicher. Shmuel says halachic like Rabbi Akiva that if someone sells the land, he sells the trees, he sells also the path together with it. Now, Rabbi Akiva didn't really say this. He said this by a bar v'dus, by the well, that the purchaser of the well gets a path. He didn't say it by trees. It says Amalei. He responded, this is Rava, Lei mesukma masnisin Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Lazar was not saying what the halach is. He was explaining the Mishnah. And our Mishnah can't fit with Rabbi Akiva. Because Rabbi Lazar's question was based on the fact that the person doesn't get the path. If it would be Rabbi Akiva, then that question wouldn't exist, because he would get the path. So it says, our Mishnah can't be Rabbi Akiva, not because he's not passing like Rabbi Akiva, because he's just explaining our Mishnah. Mimai, how do you know that? Since we learned that if the tree grows wider, the person can cut it off. That's when he has 3 trees. 1 second. Why should we allow the original owner of the field to trim the trees when they get wider? When the person purchased those trees, he sold it with all the bayin yafa, with a very generous way. He would sell him even the ability to let the trees grow wider. So he says, Amalei, he says, that's not a good raya. Maybe Rabbi Akiva only said that you sell things very generously. That's by the well, because the well doesn't ruin the property. But by a tree, does he say that he sells it generously? Rabbi Akiva also holds that if you have your neighbor's tree, that your neighbor's tree that's growing over into your property, that you're allowed to cut it down. Not to cut the tree down. You have to cut the up until where you need to work. So you're allowed to cut it down. You're allowed to cut it to where you need to work. So the same thing would apply over here. You're allowed to cut it as it starts to grow out of your person's thing. It says you're ruining, because I have the type of field that needs a lot of sunlight. Your tree that is spreading over is ruining the sunlight. It's giving too much shade, and I need to have more sun.
I have a related question. You have a fruit-bearing tree. I know, like the halacha says, you're not allowed to cut down a fruit-bearing tree that has fruit. But I think I heard that even if it's a stump, it can still grow. When you cut down a tree to its stump, and still grow.
There's a discussion about trimming fruit trees, which also they say that if it's not for the benefit of the tree, it could be a problem. But I'm not sure if we passed it like that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Wait, even if the tree is from the other guy's property, you can say that I want your tree to be cut down because about the method, or is it only in his property?
Only when it's in his property. The guy in his own property is allowed to do what he wants, according to Rabbi Yossi. When it goes into your property, then you can cut it. Just the part that's sticking over.
Inside. If it goes too tall, it's blocking.
Yeah, but you can't cut it.
Not to cut, just to get some money.
I don't think so. Okay, so now it says Tiny Kavaseder Rabchia Baraba. We have a Sufi Rabchia Baraba. Exactly what Reb Chia bar Abba taught in the name of Reb Yochanan, we have a brisa that says the same thing, that when you buy 3 trees, you get the land under it, the land beneath, between the branches, and also surrounding the canopy, the amount of area that it takes for the person to collect in his basket.
If you own it all has to be in the same field or not necessarily? The 3 trees or?
Yeah, it's in the same field. Amalei Abayla Rabbi
Right,
Yosef.
but it's still the same problem. How's it?
You have to purchase it back. Yeah.
It's always the answer.
Amalei Abayla Rabbi Yosef. Aisan Oira V'Salam Yizaran. You hear the question? When he says that you're getting a little bit of land surrounding the canopy of the tree, are you allowed to plant in that land? You say, that's for me to walk on, to be able to collect the fruits when they grow. But now I want to plant it as well with wheat or to sow it. That area, it's my land. So that it was a kid's book from Gadi Palak. This guy that he asks is this guy says, "Do you mind if I just bang a nail and wall? I just want to have a hook there." You see that in this book? And then he comes back a day later. He hangs his hat on it. He comes back later and he puts up a bag there, and it starts to smell. And he said, "But you told me I'm allowed or whatever." He said, "I can do it." Meanwhile, it smells so bad that the owner leaves the house. I forget what the mashal was. It had something to do with the Yetzer Hara. Anyway, so are you allowed to plant it there? This is a bias kasha to Rabbi Yosef. Amalei tanisua, achitzan zera saderach. He said that if there's 2 people, have a good day, a good week. If they have 2 people, one person purchases the inner property, one person has the outer property. So on the path to get to the inner property, the outer person is allowed to plant on that path. Amalei midami hasam laslei pseidel lekeach, aval hachas leipseidel lekeach. Damalei kametanfi peri. So we're saying now that Rabbi Yosef said that when it comes to the path, the outer person is allowed to plant it. What would that mean for us? That the person that owns the land is allowed to plant it, not the person that owns the tree. He would be the one to plant it. So it says 1 second, but when his fruits fall, when they fall on those vegetables, his fruits are going to get dirty from the squished vegetables, tomatoes, whatever that's down there. It's going to dirty his fruits. So maybe we should say that when there's just a path that he's going to walk on, then he has the rights to do it. But now you're actually damaging the fruits of my tree when they're going to fall there down on your vegetables. We have to compare this to what it says later in that Mishnah or that brisa. That both this one and this one are not allowed to plant it. Why was it that? If we'll be blocking his yeah. Yeah, right. So Tani Kavasei da Abaya, we have a support to Abaya, raise a kana tachtem beneim chutzlam kumlayer v'sala, zevazeh in rashayla zara. But both this one and this one, they're not allowed to plant that area, which is surrounding the tree. Neither of them are allowed to plant in that area. Be left empty.
Tree grows past it until the
Erev Basala. I think you can trim it even in the Erev Basala. I think you can trim it. Once it grows a little bigger, I think you can trim it because then the Erev Basala would be. Here's Shmuli's question. Shmuley Smith is here. He's asking a good question.
2 legs?
Yeah.
Son?
No, my nephew.
Rabbi Smith?
Yeah.
Rabbi Smith?
The real Rabbi Smith. So he's asking if the
like that kid who sits there.
if the tree grows larger, we said that he's allowed to cut it because it's growing into his property. When it came to planting underneath it, we said that he's not allowed to plant underneath it. Not this one, not that one. Let's say the tree grows larger into that area, into the Malaya or Basala. Can the person trim it down? Can the other person trim it down? It sounded like from the Mishnah that, yeah, because or else he's going to claim a bigger area of Basala. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Okay, thank you.